It's been 13 years. 13 years since I started my business. My side hustle. Because I was a bank manager at the time. You guys remember that? I was in charge of people and money. It was really an interesting season of my life. And I remember feeling the value of those improv rules so deeply that I had to share them with as many people as possible. And so I started doing little team building activities and these communications workshops, teaching, of course, we've heard yes and several times. There's several other ones. Making bold choices, suspending our judgment, participating fully. It's always what is next. It's building relationships. You guys might not know this, but the reason comedy works, and I speak on behalf of both improv and stand-up, is it works when there's connection. It works when you make that relatability and people get it. Have any of you ever been to a comedy show? Oh, good. There's some other ones coming. I'm going to be headlining the Knitting Factory on February 9th, so you can come to that. But when we laugh and you're like elbowing your friend, and you're like looking, you're like, ha ha, because you get it, right? On stage in improv, when we're working with our team and our peers, our goal is to build the relationship. We're not actually usually racing to the joke. We know that there is structure. This is like the biggest newsflash ever, is people are like, oh, you do improv? Oh my gosh, I could never do that. Well, we're all improvisers. We're all improvising every single day. So if you embrace it and decide you want to be more empowered by it, you're going to be a lot more successful at navigating your emotions and all the different things that happen when life, without a doubt, at some point goes a little bit unexpectedly. And I want to see, raise your hand if you have ever planned out your entire day. And from the time you woke up in the morning and you didn't even hit snooze that day, you were so ready for that day. You were right out of bed. And everything went exactly as scheduled, minute by minute, until you laid your little head back down on your poofy pillow with satisfaction of a job well done. Has anyone ever had a day that went 100% as planned? I haven't. Anyone? No, right? So that was a very long way of saying we all are improvisers. That's why I became so obsessed with these rules, because when we're on stage and we actually rehearse a lot, people are like, you're going to improv practice? Well, yeah, we're practicing the rules, the gimmicks, the framework, so that we have created a safe place to really stretch ourselves and to see what's possible. And I love what I do, and also I clench and I grit my teeth a lot, and my heart is sad because I'm having the same conversations over and over and over. We talk about the things, all the great ideas, and yet we need to activate them to make change. You guys have seen some amazing speakers today, some really cool panelists. We talked a little bit about accountability earlier on today, and it is a brave act to take accountability. It can be embarrassing, it can be confusing, it invites self-reflection that might feel daunting for people new to the personal development space. It is not an easy thing to do, and yet it is so powerful when a leader actually steps into accountability and does something different. When I do my workshops and have the leadership types of communication seminars that we do, I make the leaders be there. The managers have to be part of it, or I won't even do it, because they just like to send their team, go have fun, go have all these ideas, go build your teamwork and trust fall and all the things, and then we'll be over here on our cell phone or not paying attention or watching the numbers or whatever, and they're not engaging. So then they learn all these amazing things, and then they're like, well, this doesn't help unless my leader is doing it. And the same thing will happen with our sweet, sweet young generation. I've done so many workshops for youth. And well, this wasn't where I thought I might cry. But there are so many that have come up to me and they whisper to me, I wish my mom knew this, or I wish my dad knew this, or my grandma, or my uncle, or whoever, whichever grown-up they live with. I've heard them all. And they look so desperate because kids get it. Kids are freaking awesome, and we have lost the child inside us. And I love improv because it awakens it. It lets us play again and have fun. And it takes a bold leader to step into that and play and be silly and be imperfect and to really, really step up that game. But I just about, every time people are like, oh, my kids should come do your improv. I'm like, yeah, well, they should. Also, do your household a favor and learn how to yes and, so you stop yeah-butting on your kids' dreams and yeah-butting on yourself. How many of you have ever had a thing that you really want to do someday when you have more time? If you don't pick your time, it's not just going to magically happen. You have to choose it. I am incredibly passionate about what I didn't realize for a long time as one of my skill sets and my strengths is making events. I started doing this many years ago when I started in comedy, and we had no comedy club. Thanks, Boise. We still don't have an official comedy club. Boo! And so we get creative. I keep looking up here because there are some really phenomenal comedy shows, and these gals up here produce some really phenomenal comedy shows. So thank you for that. And we would get creative, and we would find the space. We would make our own stage so that we could do the thing that we love. And over time, that became making a stage where I could show people that they can bring their story and they can change people's lives. I've been speaking for a lot of years. And I used to really compartmentalize. I'd be at a business conference, so I would only talk about my yes and skills. And then I'd be at like these other ones where they want motivational. They'd be like, nonprofit organizations or all these different things. And then I could share my heart story. But they were separate for a really long time. And then one day, I felt sick to my stomach as I went down to the Grove Hotel here in town. I was the opening keynote for a 2-day business conference. And it did not have this beautiful, elaborate setup like Valiant does here for me. And for these amazing speakers, it was like beige galore in a bright lit ballroom. There was nobody there to put on my microphone for me, so I'm rigging myself up. And I left all my notes and I shared my true story, one of my true stories that really formed who I am today, a story that used to carry a lot of shame, unfortunately, and it's that I have an adoption story. And I got really nervous. But there I was in a mostly dude room, and I just started being really honest. And I shared about a time when actually that first of the 5 babies I mentioned earlier, well, the first one was when I accidentally got knocked up in high school. Oops! I was a little Mormon girl, president of my Laurel class, if you know what that is, and I was so afraid of shame and making my family look bad and disappointing them that I hid it for the whole pregnancy, which is kind of a hard thing to do, except for it was 1999, so my very baggy TCBY polo covered up my ever-growing little belly, and I hid it all the way up until I gave birth, and then I had the opportunity to then choose to place that child for adoption. The reason I felt compelled to share it, and I didn't realize until it was coming out of my mouth, was I realized that I was already activating yes and without really knowing it. And as I started sharing the story and how yes and worked and my personal tale, and I got a standing ovation at like 9 a.m. in this conference room totally unexpectedly, and people started telling me their personal stories. Not all about unplanned pregnancies, but it doesn't matter. We all have a story. And when I was realizing I was getting into this space of advocacy unwillingly at first, of talking about that and realizing that those hard conversations can only happen with yes and. Because, boy, if there's a hot topic in our country or maybe in the whole world, it's what to do if there's an unplanned pregnancy, because there are 3 choices, whether or not you like or agree with those choices. Okay? You either keep the baby and parent the child yourself, you place that child for adoption, or you terminate the pregnancy. Those all exist whether or not you like or agree with them. Putting our judgment on other people is not helpful. Looking back on my story, I am deeply grateful that I got to be the one to make that choice. Because if we force choices on other people, we get nowhere. And if you've ever had a choice pushed on you, you know how that feels. The freedom that comes from yes and as an acknowledgement and an acceptance is a game changer. I can have very difficult conversations around things with people who have totally different views than me because I say, yes, I hear you. And I've heard thousands of stories by now. This has been years. Thousands of stories that people tell me the way they've been affected by something in their life. And they usually are still whispering it to me because they're not able to say it out loud yet. As I got into public speaking coaching, which I didn't really mean to do either, but people are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, you better not care at all what people think about you. If you want to, you sure you want to do this? But as I started to learn stories from people, and I'd be like, tell me about what you do. What do you do? And they tell me about their industry. And I'm like, cool, why do you love it? And then they're like telling me all these seemingly surfacey things. And I'm like, tell me more about you. And without fail, there is some way, there is a story deep within them that changed who they are at their core. And it was usually something really traumatic. And I want you guys to understand this, how many people are carrying these things around, these heavy burdens, because they can't share them. I've heard people in their 50s and 60s, and even someone in her early 70s, who is carrying a secret she's never told her closest loved ones because she's so afraid of judgment. That is not the way that we should be living our lives. We should be saying, yes, I hear you. And even if you've made a different choice than me, I honor that. It's not my place to judge. It's my place to be here to just acknowledge and accept. And then when I started to learn how these people were tethering their story to why they really wanted to do what they do, it just was blowing my mind. I had no other option than to be like, how do I get these people on stage? How do I get these people to share? One of my clients is a mortgage lender, and she's just the shiniest little burst of joy you'll ever meet. And it took me a few conversations to where she's like, I'm like, why do you love what you do? I love crunching numbers. Oh my gosh, I love the strategy. It was just like so much fun when I can like figure out what's the right program and how do I what do they want to get out of it? And I'm like, okay, keep going. Well, then after a little while, she told me about when she was 5 years old, she had it all. And she had this home, the big acreage, the trampoline, would ride around on the tractor with her brother. And then when her parents split, it all went bye-bye. Through her teen years, she spent time living in a trailer and boiling water to wash her hair. And even her closest friends did not know. And she realized, it dawned on her in a moment that she said, oh, this is why I care so much. I'm like, yeah. You want to break the cycle of poverty. That's why you're so freaking psyched about getting people into homes. You want people to have those things where you didn't. And just seeing the way people can connect those things is so magical. I just don't even know how to express it other than that's why I'm so fired up about this kind of work. I wrote a book a few years ago because I thought, I'll just share my adoption story and be done with it. I'll just move on and it'll probably never come up again. But when I was writing the story and pulling out my archives of all the journals and the different things that had happened in that season, because it had been about 15 years until I finally started sharing the story publicly, and I wasn't ashamed of it anymore. I felt really mad that I felt shame about something that was kind of cool, that I got to be a human vessel of a baby for a woman who couldn't have her own babies. That's pretty fucking cool. Anyway, so I want you to hear this, that having monumental life experiences is worthless if we don't share them with people who may need help on their journey. It took many years for me to realize that because I had lived through a traumatic experience, I had a valuable resource, me, to share with people who are going through similar situations in present day. Hitting the skids myself has made me so patient and empathetic to others. I've been able to see my own resilience when I take the time to open up to people and let them see that vulnerability. I wish we could all stop sweeping our mistakes and life lessons under the rug, and I think of the word closure. The word is so finite. As humans, we want closure after something traumatic happens so we can move on. Perhaps we feel like we need that permission to move forward, to close the book on that chapter, figuratively. I believe that having resolution is powerful. But even more powerful is when we can wear our experiences as a badge of honor for what we have endured and never close a door so tightly on the past that we forget the person we've become for having walked through it. And I think that I hope that you guys took a lot of different nuggets throughout the day. I get really torn being this kooky human that I am because I thought they said she was a comedian. I feel like I wear all these different hats, but I realized that I am drawn to comedy because it is like a soothing balm to the bullshit of life. And it's both. I love to just dig into the tenderness and honor who I am and what I've gone through because it makes me care that much more about honoring other people. And in every job I've ever had, every different organization I've worked for, I'm always looking for the actions to match the words. I'm looking for the people who boast culture to see if they're actually being honest with me. Or if I give feedback, are they listening? I have quit a couple jobs in my life. I've also been fired twice. And the times I was fired was when I spoke up, which is not cool. We don't want people living in fear when they walk into our space. There is so much going on in the world right now. I almost feel guilty feeling joy. Don't we want to give people joy? And it's okay if we have sucked. If we really fucking suck sometimes, because we can change it. And the thing about this room, you guys all probably voluntarily came to be here, right? I think I asked that earlier. It's the people who unfortunately are not in this room that we have to go back and keep interacting with, who maybe aren't stepping up. You folks in here now, in this moment, get to be that beacon. You get to continue to choose again and again and again to look at the world and to yes and, especially when it is hard. You can, if you decide to, learn how to share some of these personal, don't have to, if you had a really, I'm not saying you have to come expose all. I really stopped caring though at one point. There's a lot of freedom being in front of your own story, being out as part of the dialogue. There's so much freedom in it. And yet I know that there's a lot of us that don't feel like we're in a position to be able to do that. Just know that every single one of us has something going on. And we get to be the examples out in our communities. We've seen from that our vote matters. We've seen that we can, if you want to use your voice to do a podcast, start a podcast. It's so easy. I started my podcast on my phone, recording a voice thingy, used Canva and whipped up a little thingy, boom, started doing a podcast. Be interviewed on podcasts. How many of you are hungry to share your story? If people knew something about you that would change the way that they saw you, there's so much power in that. Okay, I'm not going to be super heavy the whole little rest of the stretch here. But I find a lot of gratification in realizing it was when I shared my true stories and put a little bit of the joy in it with the yes and the improv and those, this is why it's fun to do it. And having the laughter, it helps us to get through those hard times. That's why I love it so deeply. And seeing other people expand in themselves when they're able to take the stage is just the most remarkable thing. I have a friend here that I would like to bring on the stage for a couple of minutes, and she is truly just the coolest person. And we, over the years, have gotten to work in a variety of different capacities, and this is the type of person who activates. She puts things into motion. She doesn't just talk about it, she challenges herself to do the things. So I'd like to welcome to the stage for a few minutes my really good friend, Tanya Herb.
Wow. Wow. Can I give you a love?
Yeah. Oh, let's bring it on in.
Oh my gosh. How many of you think that this is amazing? And I don't think I want to be the one that follows up everything that she just talked about. But I do want to pull it all together for you. And I have a question. The lights are so bright. I have a question for all of you. And this is audience participation. So show me your hands. How many of you believe that you're a leader? Wow. I asked that very same question in a room yesterday. And let me throw my glasses down over here. I was in a room full of women, and we were collaborating, which was so fun. I asked that very same question, and only 2% of the women in that room raised their hands. Do you remember when you were young, really young, and people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I asked that same question yesterday. The tooth fairy was one of the answers. I was like, oh, I never thought of that. So you hear, I want to be the tooth fairy. I want to be a comedian. I want to be stand-up. I want to make a difference. But you never hear, I want to be a leader. Do you? Do you ever hear that? Was that even in your purview any time in your life? When I was young, I had really, really big dreams too. I was going to be a race car driver. Not even kidding. I know, right? Race car driver. And I was going to marry Steve Garvey. For those of you who don't know, he was the first baseman of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Oh, woo. Ew, he was so hot. I was 12 at the time. Right? He didn't even know I existed, so it didn't really work out. But here's what happened. We lived in the sticks, way out in the middle of nowhere. So the back roads became my speedway, and I did it really well. Oh, you sing when you're on stage.
Oh, it's so fun.
Oh, I didn't even know. So I sped down the streets. I sped on the freeway, and it was awesome. Right up until I was 18. I had my license revoked for the number of speeding tickets that I'd collected. Wasn't a great idea. But I want to bring you back to a philosophy about leadership. Lead from where you are. Now, what does that mean? Maybe we first define what leadership is and what it isn't. What it isn't. Bossing people around. Anybody know anybody like that? Right? The role you play, tenure, it's not any of that. What I believe it is how you show up every single day. Anybody agree with that? Let's see some hands. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is a really big deal, how you show up every single day. Can you think about that for a minute? I want to give you a quote by Jeremy Bravo, and I really love this quote. Great leaders don't set out to be leaders. They set out to make a difference. That's pretty powerful, don't you think? I have some notes that I took on today. Do you mind?
Go for it.
Okay. Before I go into these notes, I want to give you the rule that we operate by as leaders. Have you heard of the golden rule? Everybody's heard of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Wonderful. It's a great place to start, right? And here's what happens with the golden rule. It assumes that you want the same thing as me. Is that right? that doesn't work out. How about if I introduce you to the platinum rule? Do unto others as they would have done unto them. Treat others the way they want to be treated. Ooh, big difference, right? We want to celebrate our individuality. We want to celebrate our uniqueness. We want to celebrate the glorious. Ooh, I love this. I don't sing at all, only in the shower. Okay. I have a whole talk about all of these things, but I really wanted to leave you with that. Lead from where you are. The platinum rule is the rule that you'll operate by. One more quote, if you don't mind, by my favorite new up-and-comer, Cover the World in Sunshine, P.J. Bryant. I love that, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Tanya. Stay up here for just a moment. Oh, you're not off the hook yet.
I'm staying. I get to stay.
She acts like she does not know what to do with a microphone, but she knows exactly what she's doing on stage. Tanya is one of those people who really helped solidify for me why I love the work that I do, because she was willing to rise to the challenge. And when she first heard about Ovation Speaker Series, which was one of the first big events that I did, she was like, oh, that sounds
We were at a board meeting.
We were at a board meeting on paddle boards.
That's what we call board
And
meetings.
I was telling her about this crazy idea that I had, and she was like, where do I sign up? And I'm like, what? But she went full in, and when people know they have something to share, they know.
Yes,
So-
absolutely.
And can you tell us, how did you work through the fear of the unknown to go towards something you could feel the pull even though you didn't know what to do with it?
That's a loaded question.
I only apparently know how to give
I
loaded
guess
questions.
so. Okay. So you know what? Working through the fear, that's a big deal. Because we all have fear, right? No matter what. I mean, I forgot I was actually talking for a while because the speeches were so good. And here I am. So the fear. I'm avoiding the question.
Are you still
Because I
scared?
don't want to do it. Yes.
Okay, so
In
talk
fact,
about it.
okay,
And yet you're
so-
still
still
on
doing
this
it.
stage
Okay.
even though you're scared.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you still get nervous?
I get so sick, you would not believe it. I don't know if you other comedians do, but right before, it depends on the day. I get a nod here. I value when people allow me to like talk into a microphone, and I respect people's time so much that I am like afraid that I'm not gonna do. Am I gonna do good
Right.
enough? Am I gonna give them what they want? Am I gonna deliver? So I think it comes from caring in some ways. But I would like to think that fear would go away someday, and it hasn't yet for me. And I still follow the pull because I just don't know what else to do with myself.
Not giving me much hope.
And yet you're here.
I'm
well,
here.
One of the reasons I was so drawn to bringing Tanya up is because she had never spoken on a stage before, never had done public speaking at all, even. And yet you were like, there's something. And then she says to me, there's something about talking to many people. Like you were like, you could talk to many people instead of one-on-one, which allows
the
you to
power.
like amplify that message.
It makes you feel like you can make an impact, right? When you're talking to someone one-on-one, that's easy. It's not easy for everybody, but it is easy, right? We're like connecting. Isn't that what we all want, is connection, right? But speaking in front of like the boardroom or where there's only like 10 people,
Yeah.
that's where I have to wet my pants. I get really nervous. But when you get to speak in front of a group of people and you're there to make an impact because you know that something that you say is going to impact somebody. You know it in your soul.
Yeah.
And what I knew when I really realized that I wanted to speak is that you were the person that was going to help me get there because you know how to help us with that. And I trust you. And so that's why it was an easy decision for me. Like, sign me up, let's go.
All right. Cool. I didn't
Because
know
I
that
trust
part.
you.
Oh, awesome. Okay, let's give it. I'll let you off the hook. Nice, and write a little round of applause for Tanya here. One of the things, we'll get some love. One of the things that I've learned is that if you want to be a compelling communicator, if you want to be a captivating leader who people trust, and you want to activate that empathy and show some of your vulnerability to draw people in and have that really magnetic vibe, the best way to do that is to become an articulate speaker, to use speaking in whatever capacity. I listed some of those off already. You may not want to be on a big stage in front of people. I know that makes some people sick to their stomachs. Other people, we can't get enough, even when it does make us sick to our stomachs. So I don't know what's going on with that. My therapist and I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm working on it. Going live on your social media, every time you do a social media post, when you're sharing your voice and your perspective and your opinion, if you can position it in a way that you're drawing people in with yes and energy of what else could be possible, you're allowing your voice and your platform to become something that will help be a force for good and provide positive impact. And we need more people, especially on those hard subjects, to be willing to do it in a positive and productive way, to be positive inside of whatever stories you have, that they have a purpose. I'm here to tell you that your story does matter. And whether or not you need to tie it all together and broadcast it in like a huge way doesn't really matter. It's really knowing that your own story has shaped the person that you are today, and being grateful for it and reflecting on those different things so that you can continue to elevate yourself so that you will be a captivating human being that people want to be around and build more trust around those hard conversations. I want to thank you guys again for taking the time to come out with us today. I do, obviously, it's very clear that I do speaking stuff, but one of the things I love the most about putting these events together is seeing all of these different perspectives. We saw some different themes and parallels that go on, and yet each person speaks in a different way. So we might have heard, you could hear the same message 8 times, but it's that person that said it in the way that hit you here. That's why we need more people to stand up and speak out on things that they believe in and share it, even if you feel like, oh my gosh, well, my market's already saturated, or why would people want to hear my story? I promise you they do. And it'll be for reasons that you cannot even imagine, that will unlock something inside them and allow other people to have the permission to be the person that they need to be. We need each other. We need to work together. That is an improv rule that I didn't get to yet, but it's called make each other look good. And when I'm on stage with my improv scene partner, and my goal is to make sure that person is supported, that they are heard, that I'm listening to what they say so I can be ready to add to it. I'm watching their body language and their mannerisms. I'm looking for all the things. And if my scene partner is doing the exact same thing for me, then we're both supported. And when the laugh comes, we all win together. It's one of my favorite things about improv is that we're there together. And we really are, as human beings, in this unique position to support other people within the same species. Why are we? I don't know why we don't do it. I'm going to eventually, let the subsiding of the soapbox happen. But I just really love to see how it connects and expands all the people that I've had the opportunity to hear their stories. And I just want nothing more than for people to feel strong with their voice and to feel bold and empowered by the things that they have experienced and use them to serve other people. Brent, I can't resist. Brent, if you will put up my little slide. I have a really fun program that within about 12 weeks or so, you will have a signature speech and understand your why and step onto a stage like you've been doing it for years in like a matter of weeks. This is only for people who are like ready and they're feeling the pull and they want to do something more and amplify their message, become a master of their own story, and really like be the standout, be an industry leader. Like some of those things sound like buzzwords and they're real. They're true things. There's 8 billion people on this world or on the planet right now that everyone is needing to hear more of these positive stories of transformation. And I love to get people there super fast, because if you're anything like me, when people are like ready to go, they wish they had all this like yesterday or like years ago. And I have developed a program and a pathway that is the next best thing to a time machine to get you all the things and on your way to high-paying speaking gigs, to being someone that they look to you as the authority in your field. If you use the code word Captivate, you can save $1,000 off of the program right now. Plus, you get a bonus of a free ticket to Strategic Speaker held at the Egyptian Theater this January, which is another speaking course of mine. 2 full days of awesomeness specifically around public speaking training. You also get tickets to the 3rd edition of Love on the Rocks, Comedy at the Knitting Factory. You also will get access immediately to a course called Public Speaking with Improv Insights, where you do get a little taste of a whole bunch of improv rules, plus a curtain that's pulled back on how do you use different microphones. What is it like to be in the spotlights? What's a headshot versus a stage shot? All of those different things. So you could walk into a conference just like this and belong there the first time and know exactly what you're doing. So it's kind of like 12 or 13 years of all my just whirlwind of chaos in about 3 months. So you have to be willing to drink out of a fire hose. Any of the people that have been speakers know that it's like, holy sh, right? Anyway, we can put back the Captivate thingy there. That's just a little bonus there. But I know that somewhere in these spaces there might be someone that has heard someone's story today at any point throughout these incredible speakers, and then we're like, I want to do that. Oh, or they're like, oh, shoot, I have to do that, which is sometimes even worse if you feel like you have to, because something inside you is drawing you in. So I would love to have an opportunity to work with you guys, or send, obviously, to anybody else that you know that wants to do public speaking, only if they're really ready to go all the way into it and have a great time. And I want to actually bring all the speakers back up one more time to get a huge round of applause and join me up here. I need a photo op from the team, but I want to get another really big round of applause for all of these speakers because I love the messages they have. It's almost a little bit like these condensed versions. Any one of these people, well, they already are. They're keynote. They do full-length keynotes. I wanted to assemble them in a way that we each got a little taste. But all these different topics that we covered in one day and the themes that are throughout, these are leaders in their own industries who are doing it. They are choosing to bravely step onto the stage, to amplify their message, to actually go, you know what, I want to reach more people, and in however much time I am lucky enough to have left, I want to do good with my message. And so I really just appreciate you guys so much for stepping up to the challenge. And one more round, let's get it nice and loud in here.